We now joined via Skype from Cape Town by the Director for Open Secrets, Hennie van Vuuren, who has been following the Arms Deal Saga in relation to the developments that will be taking place in the courts this morning. Hennie, we tried to talk to you earlier, but our line wasn't so clear. I was just asking you to, before we get into the conversation, to just take us back in terms of your involvement in this case.
Have been working with others in civil society for a number of years to try and expose much of the corruption in the arms deal, and that has been through activism with organizations like the Right2Know campaign, but through books as well. And I co-authored together with Paul Holden a book on corruption in the arms deal, in which we were able to set out the detailed evidence that exists, much of it generated by South Africa's criminal justice agencies, the Scorpions and other anti-corruption agencies, of proven evidence of corruption in this multi-billion-dollar arms deal that has simply been ignored by many state institutions for almost 2 decades now.
Expectations about the judgment this morning?
It's an incredibly important day, not only for the civil society groups Corruption Watch and the Right2Know campaign, who have spearheaded the struggle for over 3 years to bring this matter to justice. It's an important moment for our democracy. We had a commission of inquiry led by Judge Willie Seriti, tasked to look at corruption in the arms deal by President Jacob Zuma. And let us not forget, he was implicated in the same corruption deal. And what we saw was a process of a cover-up throughout that for a period of about 4 years. Effectively, ourselves and others withdrew from the commission, refused to participate in it because of that cover-up. And I think today is an important culmination of a step to say we cannot have commissions of inquiry, a massive amount of state resources, in this case almost 150 million rand spent on a commission of inquiry that doesn't actually consider any of the evidence in front of it. And therefore, I think if the judgment is positive, I see this as an affirmation of the independence of the judiciary and the integrity of the judiciary in our country. And very importantly, it would send an incredibly strong signal to the network of corrupt politicians in our country and the arms companies in Europe who are alleged to have bribed them, that we are coming for you as well.
Do you think that the decision by the presidency to not oppose whatever the outcomes of this process is will sway the decision in terms of how the judge takes this forward?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would sway the decision, but certainly what it did do by the presidency announcing that it wouldn't oppose, it basically, I think the stage was set for the findings potentially to be overturned. I think we are eager to find out what the judges have to say about the conduct of the commission, and I think very clearly their decision to want to have a hearing on this matter means that they, I would imagine, want to try and make some kind of a statement about the way in which this commission conducted its business. So important right now when we consider the high hopes and expectations we have for the Zondo Commission on state capture to get to the bottom of current state capture. What happened, by the work of the Seriti Commission during the arms deal cannot become precedent for future conduct. And I think this is hopefully the line that will be drawn in the stand today. And I think it's important for the country to watch this judgment very carefully.
So if you found a desirable outcome and the decisions were to be overturned, would we have to pick up where we left off, or do you think the process should be started from scratch?
We can start another commission of inquiry. I think neither the public would want that, and I think that would be a massive new process. The court might recommend that that's the case, but it's highly unlikely. Rather, where we should be investing is in the country's criminal justice agencies. Right now, there's a case that was brought to the Pietermaritzburg High Court in which the French arms company Thales and former President Jacob Zuma stand accused of bribery in the same corrupt deal. The Hawks are sitting on a massive volume of evidence of corruption in this arms deal involving British companies, BAE, Swedish company Saab, and many big German arms companies, Ferrostar and others. It's time that those dockets are dusted off and they look at the possibility of prosecuting those companies. We don't need another commission of inquiry. We need the criminal justice system to do its work. In this instance, it's to hold the powerful to account. 4 investigations have failed over the last 20 years. So I don't think I think we need to recognize that these are massive, powerful forces who want to block this type of investigation. And it potentially is a crucial test, as is what's happening in Pietermaritzburg in the Zuma Talis case, of the credibility of the anti-corruption agencies in holding them to account.
So how are you interacting with the courts in terms of that Zuma and Talis case? Are you approaching the courts to be a friend of the court? In what capacity?
No, we're certainly not approaching the court right now and have no immediate intention to do so, but we watch this very carefully. We recognize that the company Talis that is involved is a company that we believe there's strong evidence to suggest was already assisting the apartheid government during the 1980s to bust sanctions. A company we believe that Delphi September, whose birthday was yesterday, a famous South African activist who was murdered in Paris while investigating arms deals, she may have touched on some of those deals in the 1980s. So these arms deals we speak about are, of course, in the 1990s, by the time of liberation of this country. The important point is that companies like Talis and others have a long history of doing this kind of business in a country like South Africa. And we'd argue the role of civil society and others is to watch these matters very carefully, because it's in their interest to ensure that there's not only a cover-up in a country like South Africa, but that these cover-ups have effect in other countries on our continent and elsewhere, where they continue to do these kind of corrupt deals, where they become standard practice of corrupting democratic politics. So all of the processes in South Africa, why we need to watch them carefully, is that they are not only crucial tests of our own democracy, but they send a message about how we can hold these very powerful arms companies to account in other countries across the globe.
So you say one matter that can vindicate this process is for that court process to, the justice system to kick in and be efficient in this particular court case. But what other prosecutions would you like to see taking place with regard to the arms deal?
Well, I think that there's a large volume of evidence which talks to the bribe payments that are alleged to be made by British arms company BAE, by German arms company Ferrostal, by the Swedish arms company Saab, the Italian arms company Aeromacchi, all of them some of the world's leaders in the sale and production of sophisticated weapons technology. And so that documentation, we shouldn't forget, is sitting in more than a container full of information that has been with the Hawks for almost a decade. And it's precisely this which must be looked at. And of course, the network of facilitators, middlemen like Fana Tongwane, who worked very closely with former Minister of Defense Joe Modise. I think questions need to be asked of our former President Thabo Mbeki and members of his family as to why they looked the other way. And of course, the extended network within the Sheikh family. It's not only Shabir Sheikh, former President Zuma's financial advisor, who has been held to account and, as we recall, was then released early from prison on supposed medical grounds. And he seems a very fit and healthy man today. But his brother, equally, has his fingerprints all over corrupt elements of this arms deal. These men and these corporations have all escaped justice thus far. Today's hearing can send the signal that the kind of cover-up that was the Seriti Commission cannot be allowed to happen again.
In terms of the egg and the chicken, the arms deal, of course, came first. But how do you think this conversation ties into the conversation that is state capture, that is the big conversation at the moment in the country?
Yeah, I think, there's an important civil society convened a people's hearing on tribunal on economic crime in 2018. And judges, some of them are former constitutional court judges, and others sat and heard evidence of corruption in the arms deals over the last 40 years. Their judgment was clear. They have said that because we did not deal with the economic crimes of apartheid, it enabled the same arms dealers to corrupt our democratic politics. But they went a step further and made the point that it was precisely because we've never dealt with the corruption in the arms deal that those networks fought hard to disable the criminal justice system so they would not be held to account and pave the way for state capture. So, I think civil society organizations and others would argue there's strong evidence to show that this is what happens when we allow impunity to take hold. If you don't tackle it by the roots, it grows and morphs and changes. And I think that's exactly what we've seen happening in South Africa. It's precisely the reason why we now need to deal with the issues of state capture that are in front of us. But we cannot look away from other instances of economic crime, like the important issues of economic crime during the arms deal or during apartheid. These things are interconnected. The networks certainly are, and they continue to profit in various ways. And I think we would argue they do so unjustly, and these are often the proceeds of crime.
Thank you so much for talking to us this morning.
Thank you.
Mr. van Vuuren, and I suppose we'll be watching to see the outcomes as the process starts about 10 a.m. this morning.